Hi. Well, apparently the software changed stuff because it used to let me start streaming to make sure that YouTube had all of its stuff, and then I'd hit a separate button to go live. Yeah, it doesn't have that anymore. I made something special for Leo, as you can see, and anybody else who is getting triggered. I made a very, very special aquascape for you guys. I didn't have enough time to put plants in it yet, so it's just a fish only tank. But can see got some lovely, lovely fish. Wait, what about Merdul? Hold on. What? Wait. Hold on now. Oh no. I didn't know that Merdul passed. Wow. Well, that's really sad. That's super sad. Like, for a long time, as I've lovingly called him, Mr. Singh, right? Um, he was one of our mods here. That's so sad because he's was such a knowledgeable hobbyist, super wonderful person. That is terribly saddening. So yeah, that's gonna. Had I known that ahead of time, I might have done something slightly different with the stream. Wow, that's that's really sad. Okay, so I'm gonna try and get on topic and not have my brain go off into nowhere with said news. Yeah, no, it's okay. I mean, I think it's important, right? He was a really awesome member of the fish family community in general, right? He would go on kind of regularly on Stephen P's streams for a long time. He was in almost every stream I did until I think his schedule changed and it didn't line up with my stream timing. But yeah, that's kind of sad. Hold on. What do you? Send me something. Not what I was expecting, but all right. Yeah. I That sucks. Yeah, he was such a nice person, really active in the community. You'd see him in tons and tons of streams. Um, that's really sad. I hope, at least for his family, that they're gonna be okay, because that's never easy. Yeah, I know he wasn't super old either, right? Okay. Let me try and get my brain on task. So Sunday, we did a live stream with Lucas Bretz. And Lucas had made this comment, and God, he was 21. I thought he was a little older than that. I thought he was like mid-20s. Still, I mean, no matter what, be way too young. Way too young. Crying shame. Anyway, Lucas had made a comment to me before we went live and toward the end of the stream too, where he'd kind of said, thanks for being willing to talk about this, because like it seems like other fish keepers don't want to talk about this, which is to say something different than the usual. Things like filterless aquariums or something like that. And, things that are outside of what we consider the normal. Um, and that kind of made me think a couple of things. Like, one, I've seen a few comments of people that were having trouble hearing Lucas. And I was so focused on working with Lucas that I missed a couple of things in chat, and I was back using a piece of software I normally don't use. So, my apologies there, because on the technical side, that's my fault, right? Absolutely my fault. Lucas was super busy sharing some of his time. He even texted me, because like we have each other's phone numbers. He texted me and said he apologized. He went back and watched some of it. He's like, yeah, I'm sorry. I was hard to hear. And some of their technical problems. And he's like, if we want to do some kind of follow-up, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to eat too much of your time, man. I know you're super busy. And I have some ideas. So I'll probably create a video this week that is like the highlights, if you will. And that way I can mess with the audio in the background and kind of boost his voice so that he's easier to hear, and take out some of the delays and things like that, right? So try and fix some of that stuff up. But that also brought me on to this. So those asking lots of questions. Okay. Johnny Best. So Miradul Singh, which, if you scroll up in chat, you should see it, but it is spelled thusly for the first name, at least. He was a really passionate member of our community. He was a mod in my live streams for a long time until my normal live stream and his schedule no longer meshed. And he was in tons of streams all the time, whether it was just passively or being a active member of the community, a moderator. He passed away. I don't think we know what happened. And to be honest, it's probably not for us to ask, right? The family will probably, he was young. He was 21. He's 21. I am old enough to have been Miradul's father. We'll put that out there. And not in that, like, I technically could have been, and you're like saying like you were 13 or something. Like legitimately could have been his father. And that's, I thought he was a little older. Maybe that's just the way he carries himself, right? He's a very smart fellow, and it's a shame. It's a shame anytime we lose members of the community, especially so young, right? So that's going to be on the family. I don't know if the family is going to put together any kind of stuff for like funerary services or something, but yeah, those who know, there's a number of people who've been putting stuff on Facebook. I've been really absorbed in work today, and honestly, for the last like 3 months, that I've kind of missed a lot of stuff. Man, that's such a blow, because he was a really good guy. Anyway, I am trying hard to stay on task, but I can't, and it's okay, chat. We can do this cathartically together. You know what I'm saying? That's part of the beauty of live streams, is that we get to change the game however we want. It's about how we interact. Replay crew, thanks for staying with us. I know it's going to be a little rough. It's a little different. Jeff Kane, my daughters are 20, 23, and 27. Yeah, same age of your kids, right? It's really sad. And it's like there's maybe it's because social media makes a lot of these stories more prevalent than the way they used to be when I was younger. It's like, I can think of the time before social media, you didn't really hear everything under the sun happening, right? So maybe it just feels like people are dying younger for different reasons, whether it's actual health related, or whether it's something else. But yeah, that's it's just super, super sad, man. Anyway, I'm trying to do my topic really briefly. and it'll probably be brief now because my brain is not in that mode anymore. But when I was talking with Lucas, right, and he said, thanks for talking about this topic because a lot of people don't want to touch it, and which I find funny that there's this concept that doing something differently is something people are afraid to talk about in our hobby, because I feel like we have so many examples, and whether you believe in them or not, right? Like, I'm not a big fan of sand, so naturally the deep sand bed method that Father Fish is a big fan of, and is basically like the loudest voice for that method of keeping an aquarium. He's not the only one, do not get me wrong, but he's probably the loudest one on our YouTube community. That's different than anything I would do, right? But it doesn't mean that it's not viable. It's just preference. My preference is I don't generally like the look of sand, because I keep a fish that is a dum-dum and won't look its best on light substrate. I have some tanks with sand, do not get me wrong, but it's like one of those things that over time I have come to prefer something different. The trying to do the anoxic filtration method. So what Kevin Novak is probably the most well known for, and to some regard, the biocenosis basket and those things are a little more prevalent in large scale ponds as opposed to smaller aquariums like our wonderful, incredible aquascape here. But there's that is a different method, and I'm even going to be doing that in one of the tanks, right? If we watch the video Saturday, that's one of the project tanks coming up, is building an anoxic plenum and all that kind of stuff, and doing some serious testing on it to get us some numbers before I convert it into, just generically speaking, another planted tank. Because we know me, if I have an aquarium, it's going to have plants in it, and it's probably going to have rainbow fish. This one won't have rainbow fish, but yeah. Right, there's a great one. Soft Taco in chat. That's how I feel about people who swear by cat litter. Not a chance for me, right? People who use alternative substrates, whether it's the kitty litter or the people who only will use a gravel, refuse to use anything else. Even or even in some cases, right, the people who will use only aqua soil, even though their plants they're putting in that tank might not need aqua soil. They could probably get along with a lot of other things and do just fine. But we are choosing a method, right? So the question becomes are fish keepers as a whole, or as a majority, maybe is more operative here, afraid of change? Are we scared of trying something we're not used to, even if we know that the particular source of information is quite an expert at that thing and can guide us towards success? And my first answer to that is no. But I think we're slow to change. And what I mean is, especially for us more seasoned hobbyists, we're willing to play and experiment a little bit. But we don't want to do a big, massive change compared to what we're used to, because as Kingfisher's Catch is saying perfectly in chat, we're terrified of killing our livestock. We're not worried about following the successful path. We're worried more about what happens if we screw up from the successful path because maybe we did something wrong, or there's something that person didn't tell us, and maybe we'll not know that, and there's this big, much like our nebulous insert fish tank here, Question mark. And that's the scary part, because I think most of us are deep, like me, big softies at heart, and we would never want to do anything that risks harming our fish or our plants. Right? It's kind of that old mentality. Bob Purcell's even saying is like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why fix something that's already working by changing it? And that's why I say I think a lot of us more experienced, advanced, we've just done it longer, whatever the heck that may be, or more confident, maybe accurate. Hobbyists are slow to try changes, but we're willing to try them. I think for new hobbyists, there's much more openness mentally on trying something different. But the small failure quickly seems more catastrophic. Because if you were having, well, I'm trying to do it with sponge filters and this one thing is happening that I don't like, maybe I should try the deep sand bed, right? I can just move my fish out of the tank for a day and get a ton of sand in there and then put my fish and my plants back in and it'll just do its thing. And then if something does go wrong because maybe we didn't rinse our sand enough or we disturbed the wrong thing or we didn't do the right water change, whatever it was, in order to properly have reset that tank, so to speak. We try to do it the fast way instead of doing it the right way, whatever the heck that mistake may be. And if we start losing fish, even if we lose one fish, or maybe we lose, like, I lost all my tetras, but hey, my plecos and these other fish survived. It still feels much worse because, well, that fish was alive before. I just didn't like the look of that sponge filter, or I didn't like how this thing happened, or maybe it was, my whatever the heck, right? My widget wasn't widgeting enough, right? Whatever the heck that little thing is that makes us go, maybe I should try something different. And I think that's where the bigger damage occurs, is the most open-minded people tend to be our newer hobbyists. And it's really easy when you're dealing with live animals to give up quickly when you start running into problems. Because, again, that's that same thing. Us experienced hobbyists, we love our fish, but so do those new hobbyists. They probably love their fish even more. And you might be like, Bentley, even more. Come on, you're crazy. And let me explain. They're very invested because they haven't gone through some of the trials and tribulations that are trying to manufacture nature in a small glass box. We've gone through those trials, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we don't love our fish, that we love our fish less, right? And that we don't love them as much, but more that we have an understanding of how certain things are. And so when those problems occur, we'll beat ourselves up, absolutely. But we're kind of at a point now where we understand some level of mistake can happen, and this is nature. And nature is very difficult to control. Coral worked Bentley about to explain why the second and third kids are loved less. Wow. Oh, man. I could make a terrible joke, but it would be... my mom would beat me up for it, so... yeah, I'm not going to. But I think it's one of those things where when you're new to anything, especially a hobby that involves live animals, those first failures feel so much bigger than they do when you've kind of made your way through things. Even if you've been doing a hobby for 2 or 3 years, or maybe in those 2 or 3 years you had no failures, and your first failure comes later down the line, you might go, well, I don't know how old those fish were when I got them, and they only live so many years. Maybe they were just getting old. You don't necessarily think like, geez, what disease hit my tank? Maybe I'm suddenly a really bad fish keeper. Your perspective changes a little bit. And that perspective change can lead to making those failures still hurt. We still beat ourselves up a little bit. Maybe they're not so catastrophic that we're willing to give up an entire hobby for it. We're looking to learn from those failures at that point, where early on it can feel so frustrating, especially when you try something that's outside the norm, right? That we might just want to give up entirely. Passing with incest fish tank here. I mean, I can understand if you're doing a specific type of breeding project, but it was insert. Never mind. I can always count on you to like give me the kind of fun dumb giggle that I need every once in a while to break out of the norm or the rigmarole, and just kind of let the brain relax a little bit. Passing wind, appreciate you. Good to see you as always. It was having a little too much fun in the Lucas chat, one would argue, but yeah. Choose a more readable font. I refuse. I made this thing in like 30 seconds in MS Paint. This is here to trigger. And maybe it'll change a few times throughout the course of streams while I work on other projects, and then eventually I'll get to this tank and it'll actually be a real tank again. But for all the people that are like losing their mind in the comments, now you're going to start having me actively mess with you with these kind of things. Long live MS Paint. This beautiful, beautiful fish tank that I have put here for you. Add some algae. Oh yeah, maybe we'll add plants next time, and then we'll start adding algae. And then I'll try and dry like a Plecostomus on the front glass. Use that same font to caption all of Lucas's parts in the video. I think, so yeah, to get back on that part, so that's kind of my, I don't want to go too deep on this topic, but basically the short of it is I think us experienced hobbies are willing to change slowly. It's a process, right? We'll try new things, we'll play with stuff, and we're always looking for something new, especially those of us who like kind of love that sciencey nerd side, that biology side of it in the hobby. We're looking for something different and interesting. Newer hobbyists, when they try something, they're going to be more open to trying new ideas, I think, and more aggressively. But when something goes wrong, it's going to be more catastrophic. In the mentality side of things, it might not be the failure itself is worse, but the way that we try it is worse. And that might even be to something like only way of saying like trying new gear is fun. But for some people, trying new gear is even a little bit of a risk, because like I could change from light number 1 to light number 25.3 version, and all of a sudden it's so much more powerful and algae's everywhere, and that's frustrating. My beautiful planet tank is now a giant algae forest, and I'm not Lucas Bretz, so I'm not using algae on purpose, and right? Whatever the heck that may be. I think there's room for those even that change to be potentially frustrating. But there's people like us who are very tech savvy, and we're like, I want to play with the new toys, right? Algae is green. Some algae is brown. Some algae is kind of a black color. Or a red. Did you ever think about that? Bob? Huh? Huh, Bob? You should know better. You've been in this hobby for a while, buddy. Well, anyway, if you got in here late and you missed the early part, this kind of got mentioned, but so we did the interview with Lucas Sunday. I'm going to kind of recut that into a video for this week. And that way I can adjust the audio levels, make it easier to hear Lucas. Because there was some audio stuff and it's totally my fault. I should have been paying more attention and realized that, but I could hear him perfectly well in my headphones. So I guess I wasn't looking for that, and that's my fault, right? But and also cut out some of the extra time, kind of cut it down and edit it, make it kind of a shorter, maybe turn it into a couple small clips or something. I'm not really sure. But yeah. Dude, If you see Lucas, go talk to him. Lucas is so fun to talk to. He's super chill. He's super relaxed. He loves talking fish. Go talk to Lucas. Never be afraid to talk to Lucas. It's just like me. Never be afraid to talk to me. If you see me in person, go babble at me. Because I love talking to people. And if you watch my channel or you watch Lucas's channel, believe me, we love meeting you probably more than you like meeting us. Because that's one of the most fun parts of this hobby from the like creator standpoint, is getting to meet the other people that we see. You know, if I see only Way in chat, but actually meeting you in person is so much more fun. Back Demon. It's so much more fun because you get to I don't know what is stuck in my throat, but it feels terrible. Hopefully that's fixed now. It's so fun to meet the people that we see as names and actually get to like know you a little bit more. Like as some examples, right? There are a number of people that I've seen constantly, and there are even other like small creators. But getting to meet them in person and hang out and talk is so much more fun. Like Aquarium Domain, right? Jeremy, I'd watch some of his videos, watch some of his builds. Generally like him. Seems like a cool dude. Meeting him in person, completely different experience. Because getting to sit down and talk and ask questions and have that like back and forth, just two fish nerds babbling, nerding out. Now, I love that guy. Because he's just, I got to know him so much better in the short period of time we got to hang out, to a point of where it's like, he is among one of my very favorite creators. And that has nothing to do with his videos, even though his videos are super cool because he's building all these crazy monster tanks, right? But he's doing all sorts of different stuff. Like, it's not only monster fish. He's got like the Southeast Asian fish. He's got the reef tank. He's got the this. So he's just a hobbyist. He just loves fish. But he's doing it on a scale that most of us could only dream of. So getting to sit and talk with him and ask questions about that and like what got him to that point, so much cooler, right? And it's similar to like when I got to meet someone he's not always here all the time, but like Luke Wang as an example, right? Doesn't have a channel, phenomenal plant breeder. Does all sorts of crazy plants, super nice guy, very active in his club down in Sacramento. But like every time I get to run into Luke, and the first time I met him was at Triple Crown, such a nice dude. We sat and babbled, had fun, and now I've seen him at several things, and every time I get to like meet him in a different place, it's always exciting because now it's not only that person that I see in chat and interact with and occasionally like talk to in other ways, but this is a person who's become like truly my friend because I've met him in person, right? And that's what I love about getting to meet people. So never be afraid to talk to some of the creators. I can understand like some might be intimidating, like that, you know, maybe you don't want to, maybe you're a little worried about talking to like someone say like Corey, who's got a really huge channel. I get it, but trust me, all of us love meeting folks that have, whether you're a new watcher or if you watched us for 5 years. One of the first people that I had seen for like 2 years in chats all over the place, when I first got to meet her, Ginger Graves, big hug, right? Because like you feel like you know that person digitally, but when you finally get to meet in person, it's so much different. By the way, at this point, feel free to do all sorts of questions and all kind of nonsense. Bob Purcell, didn't someone in your household want to do a Blackbeard algae escape? Yeah, my wife. So she's aquascaping that big rimless tank. I'm going to do the plants, but she's selected the plant she wants. So we've talked about some other plants in the tank. I'll be basically doing the planting, but the primary plants are her selections. She's choosing them. And then the actual like hardscape is she's directing it. I'm basically just the muscle putting it in place. So that's going to be kind of like her big tank, but I choose the fish. Well, okay. I lightly chose the fish. I gave you guys a list and you guys selected the fish. So it's kind of your fish, but from my list. uh, but as far as that, after that, there is a small tank that we're probably going to do for her somewhere. We have to figure out where the heck we would put it in the house. That's one of the other problems. Is I only have so much space for tanks in my house. But she does want to do a Blackbeard algae aquascape at some point. Millwall, how do we force? So the exact answer is, in my case, it's really easy to get Blackbeard algae in the Pacific Northwest water if you have higher phosphates and a lot of blue light. You can basically just make it happen. Is there a perfect way to grow exactly that algae every time? I don't necessarily have that answer. I'm sure someone who's far smarter on the science side of life could tell you. Some kind of ichthyologist, as an example, would probably know more. But in general, like algae is easy to force. It's usually just excessive light and kind of a certain nutrient, and you're going to get algae. And as long as you don't have something maintaining and killing that algae back, it'll grow. How do you kill BBA? A number of ways. You can deal with it naturally through certain species of fish and shrimp, and some snails. Or if you wanted to go a more aggressive route, liquid carbon does a really good job. Directly spot dosing liquid carbon, or you could do hydrogen peroxide sprays. Will kill it off pretty fast. There's a suspicious tank behind me that could look good as a Blackbeard algae scape. Maybe. It needs work. I have to do a bunch of work on that tank, and I have been really light on spare time lately. Let me see here. There's another question I had. I didn't want to lose it. Adam's Electric Universe. Don't you have to inject CO2 to bring out the reds in your algae? No. You can get red algae without CO2. I've had red algae before without CO2. Usually it has to do with excess levels of iron. That's a algae in the MS Paint picture. Let me see here. Make sure there was something else I thought I saw earlier. I want to make sure I didn't miss it. There we go. This is kind of on the topic. So, Adam Lash said, I'm not sure it's so much about being afraid of change, but rather I've noticed people tend to get emotionally involved in their tanks. Well, I would hope so. Especially new hobbyists. I hope you get emotionally involved in your tank. Like, part of the joy of keeping nature in your home is that, like, emotional soothing factor to it. It's good for the mental health, man. Paul Saltero, I've got a Wallstat-inspired unfiltered plant 4-gallon bowl with potting soil capped with a fine gravel with endlers and cherry shrimp running for about a year with just top-offs. That's super cool. Laura! Good to see you, Laura. Hopefully everything's getting settled for Valkyrie. I don't know, have you scheduled your surgery for Valkyrie quite yet? Those kind of things. Let me know in chat. If you have time to take them, I'm seeing a bloom of cyanobacteria only in the substrate. That's what I tend to see. Is mostly cyanobacteria tends to be the substrate for me, and only where direct sun comes from the evening. How and what to do. So if you can, one of the easiest ways to deal with cyanobacteria is either A, deny it light. A little hard to remove direct sunlight, but you could, in theory, cover some of those portions of the tank for periods of the day. I know it's not a perfect solution, but it's something. Or two, you can use erythromycin to treat it. And erythromycin, if you get a dose right, that's for a normal fish dose. So whether that's like API's erythromycin, what the heck do they call that product from Fritz? They don't call it erythromycin, but it is their erythromycin. You can use that and just dose it normally like you would to dose a fish tank. It will kill cyanobacteria pretty well. That's the more direct route, but the indirect route is to deny light. And the thing is, you can have light. If you deny light for like a week, cyanobacteria will be dead and your plants will still be alive. And then you can come back. You might have to do kind of a water change, and especially if it's down toward the soil, get in there and kind of gravel vac to get some of that stuff out of there to help prevent it from causing any weird spikes or coming back. but that's how I typically choose to deal with it rather than medicating, is I deny light for like a week and then go through and clean it as much as I can. You can, like with cyanobacteria, I mean, it's a little tough because it falls apart, but it is like a tangible slime that you can pick and peel off of things if it's not mixed in substrate. And if you do it carefully enough, kind of like a really thin layer of Jello, you can literally just peel it off and get rid of it. But it's limited weight, like if it's dangling or something, it will just break and spread all over your tank, and it's a nightmare. So that's why generally, unless it's on like 1 or 2 leaves, I would avoid going that route. But it can be done. And then you really want to thoroughly clean your hands and like use some rubbing alcohol or something to like properly, hand sanitizer, etc., to properly disinfect them to get the bacteria off. All right, I'm going to catch up with chat now. Speaking of gear, I just ordered a CO2 reactor from Greenleaf Aquariums, another toy to play with. Yeah, depending on the type of reactor, it can be really awesome. I have to figure out what kind of CO2 I'm going to do for the wife's new tank. Marison Oxy, that might be correct, Susan. I think that might be right. Regina, that sign is redonkulous. Here. For all those who've had comments, I want to see what comments I get on this one. I have to have my fun, don't I? No surgery yet. We'll talk to the vet on Monday, see if they'll take payments on the last half of surgery cost. Okay. And speaking of, I only got to briefly mention it, but I will mention it again because that's how I roll. For those of you who have already donated, thank you so much. But if you haven't and don't know, Laura, our very own Laura, who's in chat, her dog Valkyrie has sustained an injury to where she has to have surgery on her knee, pretty similar to the surgery that Shantoto had to have last year. So she has kind of a GoFundMe because she's on disability and has a pretty low fixed income. So affording a $4,000 surgery on a dog is really hard. I matched the first $500 worth of donations that were done. And depending on how long this goes, I might use like my next month of YouTube money to do it again. We'll see. We'll see. The Fritz thing is called Slime Out. Oh yeah, for dealing with their specific one. Yeah, they have Slime Out for dealing specifically with cyanobacteria, blue-green algae. But if you can, there's a quick link to it for her GoFundMe. Anything to help Valkyrie get back to new. Valkyrie's a kind of working dog, works on a farm, so, not quite as spoiled as, say, maybe Shantoto, who doesn't have to do any work and just gets treats. But yeah. Is there a slime in? I'm sure there is. I'm sure it's just, have lots of sand, minimal water movement, and have lots of light, and that's slime in. Oh, man. Sometimes you gotta laugh. Gotta laugh at the silly things. All right. Yeah, if it wasn't obvious at this point, we've gone fully off the rails. But if you do have a question, feel free to put it in chat. At Bentley Pasco makes it super easy for me to see. I'm gonna check to make sure. Johnny Best. 4 years today, no substrate vacuuming, Echo Complete Red. And red and black, so you got kind of a mixture. In a 20-gallon long, that was my second change from the first trying. But oh, okay. So you changed out from trying things like other substrates. Now you're thinking about changing something else. I would say this: if you've got it working, don't screw with it. Right? If you were having troubles with it, you could consider maybe trying something slightly different. But if you've got it to a point of success, keep that success going. Like, don't disturb long-term success. That would be my statement. If you're struggling with certain things, it might be worth trying other stuff. But otherwise, yeah. Oh, Susan. Thank you for the super sticker. I really appreciate it. Message retracted. Well, I don't know what got said, but okay. Good to see you, Lady Diane. It's been a while. Branson, red coralline algae in a freshwater setup is terrible. Finally getting it to die back for one of my tanks. Yeah, so I've dealt with red coralline algae too in freshwater. It's a bear to get rid of. But you can. It's just a very patient, slow game, typically. It's not something you can do really quickly, like with some of the other algae types that are out there. It's just slow and patient. Coral work. So here's a question because I didn't pay enough attention in biology. Why does erythromycin work on cyanobacterium, but not our nitrogenous bacterium, gram-positive, gram-negative? Right. So in the case of cyanobacterium, it's gram-positive. It's not gram-negative. Whereas most of our beneficial bacteria are gram-negative, including a majority of the bacteria that are fish diseases. So when we go and use some of those more aggressive antibacterials that affect gram-negative bacteria, they also impact portions of the bacterial colony we have in our filter. Which is why a lot of hobbyists will see kind of all over the place methodology of like, don't just immediately medicate, right? Try and figure out exactly what's going on first, because very often fish are fairly durable against a lot of things, and they can typically beat stuff out with simpler natural changes like water changes, increased temperature, maybe a little salt or something. But yeah. Erythromycin has never done anything to my cyanobacteria. The blue-green slime stain remover product on Amazon does work. Interesting. You've never had erythromycin function for that? That's strange. Like, I've used erythromycin a lot, and it's murdered it every time I've had it. And then eventually I got tired of just burning through erythromycin because it's expensive, and was like, if I just turn off light for a week, it dies. I'll just turn off light for a week. So much cheaper that way. Tyler, the recommended substrate for Corydoras has always been sand. It has been shown through many anecdotal experiences that they will thrive in non-sharp gravel. Are people afraid to change? I think a lot of that is... It's not necessarily being afraid to change. It's that we know that this is the optimal thing. And so people who are like really dedicated to keeping Corydoras probably are going to seek the optimal thing. I keep Corydoras in a number of tanks that are just aqua soil, and they do just fine in there. Their barbels are fine. I've had some of them breed. I'm not trying to actively breed them, so it's not like I've had huge numbers of babies. But I have a couple of babies that grew up in the big 75 long I have downstairs, and these two little boys swim together all the time. They'll just go all over the tank with each other constantly. They're the best of friends. It's so adorable. And every time my wife sees the two of them swimming together, she gets excited. And they will, if you want to hear something dumb, they will hang out with the dojo loach. She's like their best friend in the world. And when she is sleeping in weird positions, like loaches do, like she'll be straight up like this, or have her tail up instead, or she'll be like hammocked and look like she's dead on her side in some of the plants, you will see those two little boys, like if she's just like flopped over, right? You'll see these two little boys go and swim and like literally brush with their barbels along her, and she'll eventually like, wake up, and swim off. It's adorable. And they'll follow her all over the place. Unless she's like really, really actively moving a lot, they'll follow her. When she's just like flopped on the substrate, they come and they just park right by her. I think they just think she's a really big Corydora. It's so adorable. Who can tolerate non-sand substrates better, Corydoras or Geophagus? Probably Corydoras. Because for Geophagus to be at optimal health, they want to sift that sand through their gill plates, right? That's why they're an earth eater, where Corydoras are a scavenger. So I would say Corydoras and a number of the different loach types will do better on non-sand substrates, as long as they're not sharp, than, say, a Geophagus would. If you know what you're doing and you're providing the right food, Geophagus can still do fine. I've seen Geophagus in relatively rocky, like smooth river stone, mind you, but rocky tanks, and do well. I've seen some really big red-headed tapajos like that. But I would say that on a generic statement, it's probably better for the corridors. Wow, Bill, Billy, I love the way you talk with love about fish. I generically love fish. And it doesn't have to necessarily be the fish I keep. Like, one of my favorite things is listening to other people's stories about what got them into fish and why. And I don't know, it just jazzes me up. The things that I'm passionate about should be relatively obvious. I'm passionate about many, many things. I'm a giant nerd of many different hobbies. But the things that I love talking about the most: fish, some video games, and some gaming in general. And then, like, my other casual hobby, which is to say, controlled version of this hobby. But to give you an example right there. Quarries will also sift fine sand. Yeah, no. I mean, quarries will sift fine sand, but what I'm saying is, like, for optimal health, it's probably better to see them the geophagus on sand, where I think quarries can do better in non-sand tanks. Yeah. No shade on financial interest in the answer, as long as they say it up front. Missing something. Vincent, hold on. Oh, not to get back on topic. Are fish keepers afraid of change? Back to the hobby about 25 years out, I'm a little surprised of the rigidity of peeps who do not have a financial interest. I think part of that comes with people in any given hobby. When you find success, you have a lot of trouble steering away from what you know to be successful. And so, like, I will give you an example that makes no sense for fish and yet makes perfect sense. Right? Let us say that you find someone who figures out, this is the way that I can perfectly cook a steak every time. And somebody tells you, "Oh, but if you do it this way, it will always be perfect." And that person who, like, has their way will kind of go, "Yeah, but this is the way I do it." Once you find that level of, like, success, comfort, and ease, it becomes hard to want to branch away from that. And we could see that even in, like, people's careers, right? You could find a job where you make the sufficient amount of money you need. It's not overly stressful. You like maybe the people you work with, or you like the people that run the company, whatever the heck that may be. But if you were to challenge yourself more, you could maybe get to a point of where you made significantly better money, or maybe you would get to a point of where you could run your own version of that business. But that challenge is scary. And that scary part is what keeps a lot of us wanting to stay kind of in our lane, so to speak. And I think that applies to, like, our hobby too. Although I would say there are some differences. Like, 25 years ago, you weren't using LED lights, where LED lights are pretty common now. The level of planted tanks was not as prevalent as it is now. But if you're going to go look at, like, say, an Oscar tank, well, the difference between an Oscar tank 25 years ago and an Oscar tank today is very little. You know, there's kind of an established way to do it. So a lot of people are just going to stay in that lane because they know how to be successful. Laura. No, this is not correct. Only way, Gary Lane gave instructions on how to raise rainbow fish eggs. It involves trays. I instead just tossed them in a season 20-gallon with other fish. Got yelled at by Gary. Fish were fine, though. Yeah, I mean, there's a risk when you do certain things. Gary has his way to get the optimal number of fish hatched. There's a risk throwing eggs in with another type of fish that the eggs will get eaten, right? Or the fry might not survive, whatever the heck that may be. Is it possible? Absolutely. Absolutely. J.W. Carlson, I have lots of stir-by that I've spawned and raised on bare bottoms. Don't seem to have any issues with them. Sweet. I wish I could get my stir-bys to give me babies, but they're also in a big mixed tank, so not as likely, right? Make sure I didn't miss something back here. Pretty good, pretty good, pretty good. Okay. I'm not surprised by the rigidity of people who don't have financial interest. Fish keeping, and probably most hobbies, has always been full of egotistical armchair experts. They're everywhere. Well, I mean, like every hobby has armchair experts. Um, you know, think of the average sports fan who thinks they know better than the professional coaching staff, right? And we're often sitting there with the grace of hindsight making our decision. I told you. It's like, yeah, but you're not going to admit the like 9 times you were wrong before that one time you were right, you know, as an example, or all sorts of other armchair type stuff like that. Uh, and that being said, I participate in that all the time. So I think it's the nature of any given hobby, right? There's always going to be that kind of stuff. Susan, have a good night. Thank you for joining us. Even non armchair experts can be egotistical. Yeah, everybody can be egotistical. It just happens. Bentley, it's amazing how much food they need to get them spawning. 4 to 6 tube effects cubes per day for a group of 6 adults. Wow, really? They eat that heavily, huh? I wouldn't have thought just with that size they'd need that much food, but that's probably why. I feed kind of a sustained level of food as opposed to a like bulk them up level of food. Feeder Frenzy. Bentley, sorry to bother you. Do you know of any lights I can buy in bulk for growing Monte Carlo in a 20 long? Cheaper the better as long as it works. Okay. So, a 20 long is inherently a shallow tank. You could probably get away with the like LED shop lights that are sold at like Costco's. Just make sure you get ones that are 5600 Kelvin, so they're the brighter white. Those things are like $20, $25. They're cheap. There is some other stuff that you could get from China that is designed for like garages. Let me give you an example. Go look some stuff up. Hold on. I think. Remind myself if I've got. Nope, where I think things were, they are not. So, like, as an example, right? My dad runs a hot rod shop, basically, out of his home. He's been doing that as his business for years. He has these, like, super bright, thin strip LED lights that he gets that I think come from China. And I think they're like $10 each or something, his cost. And if they were sold, they'd be like 20 just because you've got to account for shipping and all that kind of stuff, right? They're incredibly bright. They're probably too bright for a fish tank, but maybe if you're trying to do Monte Carlo, that might work. Because you want something that's really bright. But they're not designed to sit on top of fish tanks, so you would have to build something to hang them up on, right? To hang them accordingly. Or like, if you're in a rack system, you have to drill them up into your racking, etc. There's lots of options out there. It's just finding the right option. Sometimes it's worth spending the few extra bucks to get something pretty nice that's going to last you a long time. And keep in mind that a lot of those cheap lights, as Henry is saying in chat, they get hot. So you have to account for that. Neo Veritas, where did you get your metal fish racks from? Those are custom made welded racks. They're not something you just buy. They were made by a guy for a fish store that was going out of business. I bought them with those crazy um those crazy tanks that have the really high sides and back wall that I used to use. Um they came with the racks. Those tanks and racks came together. So they're literally just custom built welded racks. If you want something that's a little like off the shelf easy, there's plenty of knock together shelving, typically used for like warehouses that you can buy the smaller versions of that hold a lot of weight. You just want to change out the board that they use because typically they have like an MDF board. Change that MDF for a proper piece of plywood instead and just custom cut it to sit there. Because all that is on my racks. The racks were custom welded, and then there's just custom cut plywood that sits on it. And the old light housings that are in it were just drilled up into the plywood with some small screws. Do your metal racks rust? No, they're coated. They're painted with a it's not powder coat, but they have a specific paint over them that is designed to deal with water to prevent rust. If I were to build fresh ones, like have my dad make them, because my dad's a phenomenal welder, and I've talked to him about this in the past, I would probably look at potentially powder coating. Just because once they're powder coated, they're invincible, effectively speaking. When you use any rack, you must use a rubber half-inch mat. Disagree. Disagree. I've had tanks sitting for 5+ years on straight plywood on a rack. They're just fine. Does having the half-inch mat help? Yes. If I do new ones, will I have a mat? Yes. Do you need them? You must? No, not at all. Oh man. Perfumery by Saban. Thank you. And go Hawks. I'll be really interested to see, like, as a tangent, really interested to see what the football season this year is going to look like. Do you need leveling mat if you have framed tanks? No, not really. You don't need them. They're nice, though. Even with a frame tank, they're nice to have. Where you need them typically is with rimless tanks. Rimless, it is typically good practice to have one of those mats. And you can basically just use a yoga mat. It's just balancing it out with foam. But yeah. Tyler, I am new to Bucephalandra, the boost. I have a Higer light. Would that be too strong for it? It depends on the boost. Some boost really likes very high levels of light. Some boost likes lower levels of light. In general, I have found the most success with medium levels of light on larger leafed ones and high levels of light on small leaf. Leo, what's your question? Sorry, buddy. Repost it real fast. I'll get to it. I'll try and find it. You have the bat phone. You know you can get your question answered all the time. What would cause my corridors to lose their barbels on planted fluval substrate? Bacteria. Are they losing it on that? That's really surprising. That's really surprising. If they're losing it, I would assume it's some kind of bacterial disease building up that is causing problems with their barbels. Something you aren't paying enough attention to, Leo. Leo gets all sorts of attention. It's all sorts of attention. But yeah. Yeah. That'd be my guess. If you have a good, clear picture of their barbels, Leo, shoot that to me because I'm curious. I can't say I've ever ran into barbel issues using any of the aqua soils. So if you're running into them, that's very curious. My assumption would be some kind of bacterial problem that's occurring. But yeah, interesting, very interesting. Peplin excited to be a Jets fan. I mean, you guys just did get Mike, Big Mike, right? So, Bentley, do you currently have any corridoras in possession? Yes, I have Equus corridoras in the Running River tank. And then I have a mixture of Stirbai, Adolphoi, and Aeneas Corys, all in my 75-gallon long kind of like retirement tank 2.0. That's where a lot of like my big leftover rainbows go. It's not dedicated to any one fish, but that's also where the Dojo Loach is. And there's some hold on, brain. There's the Aeneases, which are, your like generic bronze corridoras. The larger kind of peppered corys. Why am I forgetting their proper name? Not the like Habrosis, not the small ones, the bigger guys that have like the mottled pattern. Why is my brain not functioning right now? That's what I'm looking for. Paleotis. I got a couple Paleotis in there too. Those were all like adopted fish that have all come together. And there's like one Brocus, one Emerald Brocus in there too. it's a mishmash of things. I do plan to get in the near future more Equus Corys to go with my current Equus Cory colony. Because there's only like 7 of them, and I love them. I love the Equus Corys. They're probably my favorite corridora. And then I want gold lasers. I really like gold laser Corys, and I know a good spot to get them on the cheap. So, yeah. How is the undergravel filter tank doing? It is in the process of being built. So, it hasn't screwed up yet? Aren't those Equus expensive? Yeah, they're like $30 a fish. They're not cheap. I got my current group actually really cheap from Aquarium Co-op of all places. They had like a small group left, the 7 that I have, and no one was buying them. So they had it on a like buy 2 get 1 free, right? So now they're basically $20 a fish instead of 30. And because there were 7, like the store manager was just like, just take the 7th one. Just take the extra one. So I got 7 for the price of 4, which I felt was a good deal. And then I also had a discount because my club gets a discount through Aquarium Co-op. So after the buy 2 get 1 free and getting the extra one free, I then got I think at the time it was a 10% discount that my club had. Pretty sweet. Orange Venezuelan is also a very good looking fish, but it's a different pattern. And the thing is, like, the Equus has a very green looking body, and they midwater swim a lot. And the fact that they midwinter swim is something that I love because they'll sit and swim and school back and forth with my running river fish. And it's so cool to watch. Thank you for answering my question. It's no problem, Tyler. What's your favorite box filter? Honestly, if I was going to use a box filter, I would use these ones. We'll go slightly longer. Again, tell the pollen is in the air. It is that season, people. The pollen is coming. These things. I love these dumb things. From Gemco. It's like Grandpa's fish room supplier. But this style of box filter, I don't earn anything from this. But like the bigger, slightly rounded ones, like the old school 70s box filter and 60s box filter, those are the ones I like the most. They're fantastic. Wash that safety zorb well. I use a Little Giant brand pond basket from Amazon. Oh, that's actually a really good tip. Hold on. Now I have to like go purposely look that up just so that I have it. Little Giant basket. That's the one we want. Such a good idea to use one of those to rinse. Are you using the square ones way or the round ones? I'm assuming round if it's a Little Giant. But there are like square ones too that are like the Little Giant knockoffs. Inquiring minds want to know. I'll wait. Square one? Yeah. All right. Vincent, why are Equus your favorite? Thinking about a 40 breeder just for Corey's, orange lasers also high on my list. It's mostly the combination of their pattern, right? Because they've got that really cool like echelon shaped orange stripe behind the gill plate and that greenish body. And they don't get super huge, but they've got just enough chunky body to be a good, like healthy size Corydora. And then they swim constantly mid-water, down, up, down. They go all over the place, right? And they kind of like, you know how Corydoras have that like wiggle to them, right? They're very wiggly. They're like corgis in a way where there's lots of butt wiggle going on, right? But they do it kind of slow, and they'll just chill mid-water like a bunch of other fish will. And I don't know off the top of my head any other Cory that does that. And there's that part of just their combination of their pattern, their coloration, their behavior. They're not super scared. Like whenever I walk up to my tank, I don't watch my Equus Corys run away. They're just like, oh, hey, what's up? I'm swimming with all these other fish. They're not scared. I guess I don't need to be scared. I'm just chilling. What's up? You got some food? And there's that combination. I've sat and watched them for so long that even fish that have like cooler patterns like the Pantanolensis and some of these other things, there's just something about that fish where I'm just enamored with them. So they've just become my favorite. They're so cool. Had the same opportunity as Bentley with my Equus. Bought out a guy's stock of 8 at the end of year discount. Got them for 20 each. Nice. That's such a great, like if you can get that fish for $20 or less, because I have heard stories of people that have got them for like $10 a fish, and I'm so jealous of them. That's a steal. Just watch them. And there's definitely places that get them more often and have good stock. Yeah. Don't fill the entire basket with safety drawer while washing it. Only fill it like 25%, rinse at a time. Yeah. That makes sense. I was honestly just going to lay it all out on a tarp and just blast it on a tarp. Josiah had a plant question. Let me go catch that. We're running late, so I can catch a plant question. Hold on. Josiah, trying to find it. It may be faster for you to repost if you're still here. Nope, found it. Would you tell me what you know about umbrella grass, especially how to propagate it? Been having trouble finding good info. I can't find tissue culture vowels. Really, you can't find tissue culture vowels? That's interesting. I actually kind of need the scientific name, but I'll look it up. Umbrella hair glass. Oh, vivipara. Okay. So, like a lot of hair grasses, you're going to want slightly higher light because that naturally like fine leaf that it has, being that very fine grass, unlike something like Vallisneria, Sagittaria, dwarf chainswords, any of those things that have a bit more broad leaf to it, that requires higher light in order to get successful photosynthesis. The second thing in general I would say is a reasonable amount of flow. You don't need high flow, but a reasonable. What you want to see is water movement that prevents detritus from sitting and building up inside the grass. And the way that we can also fix that is once a week we go through and we just kind of lightly vacuum it out. We vacuum out the grass kind of like we'd be washing our hair, right? Think of it. You're washing your hair. You're getting some of that extra gunk out of it. to help keep it clean to prevent algae buildup is the key thing here. We don't want algae to build up and inhibit our plant's ability to get stuff. When you're first setting it up, because it is a bit of a root feeder, make sure you have some root tabs down on your substrate. Have deeper substrate. Let it build a nice, robust root system. So if you only have like 2, maybe 3 inches of substrate, consider adding a little bit more. Get yourself to 4 or 5 inches of substrate. So you've got lots of room to plant it down in there and have plenty of room for it to build a nice, robust root system. Between good root system space, a nice set of root tabs to help kickstart it when it's going, a little bit of patience. It can be slow to start really kicking off and go crazy on you. Good light and keeping it clean. That would be my big suggestion to you on how to have success with basically any hair grass, including the vivipara. Hope that helps you, Josiah. Where can I get that box filter? Literally from Gemco. If you need extra help on that one. Gemco is old school, though. You literally have to call them. There's no email, no online ordering. You have to call them like it's an old warehouse business. But that would be where you would get them. I'm sure you could probably find some on Amazon, but Gemco's got the good ones. Still a stir-by fan? Hey, stir-bys are awesome. Stir-bys are amazing. But for me, those are my jam. On spring break in Washington State, visiting. Thanks for all your content. Oh, cool. Enjoy spring break up here. We're getting the nice weather, but it's not super hot. It never really gets truly super hot here, except for like 2 weeks a year. But yeah, enjoy Washington. Definitely, there's so many great fish stores to go check out. If you haven't been to, surely you're going to go to Aquarium Co-op, but if you haven't been to places like Aquarium Zen, there's a new one out there called Moonlight Aquatics. It's a really awesome store. The owner is a really cool guy. There's like Sierra Fish and Pets is really cool. This is a really old school mom and pop run place that's pretty great. Denny's Pet World is pretty fun. As far as just like a generic pet store that has a really good fish section. There's a lot of really awesome places you can check out. Plus, if you like your seafood, it's a really good place to eat seafood. Yeah. And if you need more, email me and I'll give you some suggestions. I've only lived here for 41 years. But I'm an old man. I've been here for a while. I can be a curmudgeon and tell you about all the things that I think are great about the Seattle area. But if you like to hike, fantastic place to be. Obviously, I'm not much of a hiker. I'd probably kill myself. But, yeah. Thoughts on drilling plant pockets in driftwood to fill with aquasoil? Are there advantages to that over epiphytes? Reasons to not do it. Reasons to not do it. I'm lazy. Reasons to do it. I guess that could work, but eventually you could run into weird compaction or detritus issues. I much prefer using epiphytes when it comes to that because those plants naturally grip into wood to anchor themselves, and they create this cool like symbiotic relationship, and you can tell the difference between one you've attached and one that is really grown in and is happy. When it's really grown in and happy, it's amazing because those plants go crazy on you. You're going to see that in the Fallen Forest tank. There are a couple pieces of boost that look phenomenal in that tank because they've fully attached into the wood. And as the wood slowly decays, right, because our wood is slowly decaying in our tanks, it's feeding off of that. And it's helping this particular boost like flower a ton, have these beautiful, robust leaves on it. It is something to behold, and you will see it in the fish room tour when it comes. All right, gang. I have to go get dinner. I have to run some errands. I have to prepare for a bunch of workers to come to my house because my furnace died last week, and I have to get my furnace replaced. Thankfully, it's warm and it's not cold anymore, so we didn't have to worry about that part. But yeah, that's fun. I have to make room for the new furnace to come in and the old furnace to go out. As always, my friends, thank you so much for watching, and stay awesome. Insert fish tank here.